Hello, I'm Mike Parrish, Agriculture Extension Agent in Dinwiddie County, and I'm for the soil because it's the foundation to everything in agriculture.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of For the Soil, a conversation. I'm your host, Jeff Ishee. Mary and Eric will be joining me in just a few moments. Of course, Mary Sketch Bryant, she is a co-host, as well as Eric Bendfeldt with Virginia Cooperative Extension. They'll be joining us in just a few moments, but I wanted to take just a moment, if I may, to remind everyone that next week on April 22nd, it is Earth Day. Now, of course, for farmers, every day is Earth Day. We've all heard that. We've seen the bumper stickers, but it is a reminder that we need to take care of our natural resources. Once again, Wednesday, April 22nd is Earth Day. Another thing I wanted to quickly address is some people have asked, well, who is For the Soil? What are you all about? Well, For the Soil, and it's using the digit 4 because there are 4 core principles to soil health. It's For the Soil with the digit 4. It's an initiative of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition and Virginia Cooperative Extension, and the goal is to raise awareness of soil as a critical natural resource for current and future generations. You know, by caring for the soil, we can build healthier communities, stronger economies, and a more resilient landscape. Now, one of the resources you have available is our website at forthesoil.org, and there at the menu bar, right there at the top, you'll see the 4 core principles of soil health. Number 1, keep soil covered. Number 2, minimize soil disturbance. Number 3, maximize living roots. And number 4, energize with diversity. Go to the website forthesoil.org, and each of those 4 core principles will be explained in detail. Now let's get to this week's episode of For the Soil, a conversation. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of For the Soil, a conversation. I'm your host, Jeff Ishee, joined by my co-host, Mary Sketch Bryant with the Virginia Soil Health Coalition, and Dr. Eric Bendfeldt with Virginia Cooperative Extension Community Viability. We're going to do something a little bit different this episode, guys. We're going to just talk amongst ourselves and kind of go a little bit deeper into what each of us is doing in regards to the soil health community, so to speak. Eric, why don't you start us off and kind of talk about some things that you're doing in the spring of 2026 in regards to soil health?
Sure, Jeff. Well, it's nice to be here. And, Mary and I are following up with one of our guests, Bob Jones Jr. of the Chef's Garden. And he was recently on the podcast, and we're actually going to be holding a webinar with Mr. Jones to hear more about the Chef's Garden and how they have both adapted to adversity, experimented and worked with soil health with cover crops, but really focus on vegetable quality over quantity, and just hearing their story. So I think really looking forward to that. And as Mr. Jones and the Chef's Gardens really worked with a lot of both farmers and chefs and food businesses across the country. So again, the connection between, caring for the land, caring for the soil, and then also producing high quality, nutritious food and such, and trying to address some of the both financial issues as well as health issues that people are facing.
I have to say that Bob Jones Jr., and for our listeners, that those episodes came out in the month of March, and you can go to our website at forthesoil.org and just click on podcast, and you will find there with Bob Jones Jr. I have to say that in my 31 years of agricultural journalism, Bob was one of the most articulate, well-spoken farmers that I've ever had the opportunity to interview. He really could make a point to where I could understand it as a non-farmer. I think he articulated his family's story, how at one time they farmed 1,200 acres and they sold to commercial grocery stores. I mean, he was just full of stories. So for our listeners who did not catch those episodes. They aired during the month of March, and you can go back to our website at forthesoil.org, and you will find those stories. And Mary, what's going on in your world?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Spring is an exciting time. There's a lot going on, and I'll just highlight a few events that we're involved in. And I want to say specifically, I say we, but really my colleague, Dr. Summer Thomas, who's the coalition's outreach and education specialist, has been really leading the way in getting the coalition really engaged in a diversity of educational activities. And how can we really push soil health as a concept out to a diversity of audiences, including youth, homeowners, your master naturalists, master gardeners, various farmers. And so it's really allowed us, I think, to get our face out there and spread the gospel of soil health. But we have a few field days coming up, including one in the Richmond area that we'll be at with 4-H there. So we've been in general trying to build a stronger relationship with 4-H, and we'll also be presenting at their Congress. That's in June, I believe, in Blacksburg. So that's really, how are we reaching youth more in connecting there, and also doing a program for youth educators, K through 12 educators. How can they integrate soil health into their classrooms? So we're doing that in partnership with DCR. Lots going on this spring with various field days, several in May. There's a grazing field day in Montgomery County that we're supporting, that Extension's putting on. So it'll be fun to get outside in this beautiful weather. And I just also kind of want to look a little higher level is kind of where the coalition, just came out with our 2026 through 2028 strategic plan, which it always excites me because it kind of provides, what's that path for where we're going to go in the years ahead. And a lot of building off of what Eric shared is how are we really connecting all components of this system? We know soil health threads throughout all of the food system. Yes, it's good for the environment, but it's also that economic bottom line, farm viability, community viability, and really connecting all of those dots. So excited to start getting that in action and connecting our 50 partner organizations to really brainstorm what's needed on the ground. How do we advance technical assistance capacity? The financial viability of farmers, and just portraying that. So have some research work in progress that Eric is also involved in that we hope comes to fruition. But yeah, in general, a busy time.
I know Earth Day is coming up, and by the way, I've scheduled this episode to come out on April the 14th, which would be mid-April, and that would mean that about a week from now will be Earth Day. April the 22nd, I believe, is Earth Day. Do any of you have any activities planned around Earth Day? Eric?
Yeah, I think we'll both have promotional material, and then I think also educational material. And just recently I was attending a blueberry workshop, and again, Dr. Summer Thomas was talking about soil health and using the demonstration of cutting up an apple to demonstrate just how thin a layer or skin of the earth that soil represents. And I think Earth Day is one other way to raise awareness about just how critical a resource is, and how it's so important to food production, but also so many things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And I think hopefully, as spring comes, that people are not only getting ready for planting their crops, but then also their gardens. And April's always a beautiful time to think about how we can be part of, restoring and, cultivating sort of the creation that we have, and really just, I think it's a time of awe and wonder about the earth and all that it provides for us.
You mentioned a thin layer of soil, and my mind immediately went to my backyard vegetable garden. My wife and I live in northern Augusta County on a ridge, and there's a very thin layer of soil. You go down 6 or 8 inches and you're into bedrock. But the soil above it is just very thin, and that's one of the reasons that we transitioned over the years to raised bed gardens. And I'll share a little story with our listeners here about cover crops and having a cover over those soils during wintertime. I came into a situation last fall where I had a pickup truckload, literally, of loose, dry grass clippings that I had taken off of our yard over a period of several weeks last summer, and then that had just accumulated over in a corner into this giant pile of dry grass clippings. And I was wondering, what am I going to do with all these grass clippings? And then I had a light bulb moment. Well, I need to cover the soil in my raised beds. And so for two of my raised beds, we integrated a traditional cover crop, which was a variety of different grains and grasses that you would find in any cover crop. But for the other two, I just piled up dry grass clippings and then put row cover over that so it wouldn't blow away. And so I'm anxious to get out there a little bit later in April and uncover those beds to see what's going on. I'm hoping that protected the soil and also improved the habitat for earthworms and other components of the microbiome, if you will. Don't want to get too technical here, but I love to experiment in the garden with different cover crops. We've tried ryegrass, we've tried buckwheat, we've tried mixtures of cover crops, and this year was a little bit different. We just used dried grass clippings to cover and protect the soil. So I'm anxious to get out there and see how that turned out. Do either of you garden, by the way? Mary?
I've got a We are blessed with a beautiful plot of forested land, but that makes it a little challenging for gardening. But what's been fun is it's allowed me and my 2.5-year-old daughter to explore the soils in a different way. But we do some container gardening in our little patch of sunlight we have and have thought about areas that we can, how can we get creative about growing some of our own food? So we've had some luck with jalapenos was our most effective plant last year in the container gardens. So
And I've overheard you say you grow basil.
yes, basil. I love a good pesto. So I will find a way to grow basil even if it's making my neighbors give me some of their sunlight.
Well, for 19 years, I was a newspaper garden columnist for a Sunday newspaper in Stanton, and I wrote on a lot of different topics involving backyard vegetable garden, herb gardening, and so forth. And I got on this mailing list for the National Garden Bureau. Every spring, they send me a box of new varieties of vegetables and herbs to experiment with. And when you said herbs and specifically basil, there is a new variety of basil this year, 2026. It's called Treviso, Treviso. And I've read a lot about it, and I've got one pack of seeds, but it's just being introduced this year. So you might
Oh,
want Treviso.
you'll have to let me know how that grows, Jeff. And I'm also, it has me thinking your question about do you garden? Something that I've wanted to do for a while, and just kind of, I guess, a PSA for our audience is if you do live somewhere where your own, you don't have opportunity to garden in your own land. I know in Roanoke, where I live, there's a growing number of community gardens that you can get a plot, and it's also a great way to learn from others and connect with others. So that's something I want to look more into, and a great way to steward soils that are outside of your own little neck of the woods. So something I'll be exploring in years to come.
And Eric, I know that you have lived not only in the Commonwealth of Virginia, you lived for quite a while in Africa. Uh,
Y-
I suspect you've had some interesting gardening ventures.
Yes, well, where we lived the first 3 years in Tanzania, we were about a 15 to 20-minute walk from Lake Victoria. So many people had market gardens along Lake Victoria, but probably the people, here in the US, we think about different pests and, what you would do with them. And a couple instances that we had that
Did you
uh,
have rhinos in the garden?
it was actually hippos that would come out of Lake
Hippos, hippopotamus.
Victoria,
Okay.
either Lake Victoria or where we live, the Maury River, as well as the Mara River emptied into Lake Victoria, and people would have gardens or crop fields down by the lake, and at nighttime hippos would come up and really eat and destroy people's gardens or crop fields. And that was, we did have the experience to taste a hippo burger, and it was very lean, but not quite like something I've had. But it was very lean beef. So that's my FYI and little factoid. I have had a hippo burger.
Very interesting story. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this episode. I want to encourage our listeners to tune in to the next episode. We have scheduled Kim Melton. She is with the Red River Basin, and they are an organization. They have activities going on in the northern plains in southern Canada, and she is a very interesting individual, but she will be our next guest coming up later in April and then into the month of May. But Eric and Mary, as always, I want to thank you for everything that you do, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff and Mary, and have a good day.
For the Soil, a conversation is made possible with funding support from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the Agua Fund. Other partners include the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia State University, Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, and partners of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Views expressed on this podcast are those of each individual guest. To download a copy of this or any other episode, visit the website forthesoil.org. If you have a specific question about soil health, just call your local extension office, your local USDA service center, or a Soil and Water Conservation District office. Music used during today's program was provided courtesy of the Flip Charts, all rights reserved. For the Soil, a conversation is produced by On the Farm Radio in collaboration with Virginia Tech. I'm your host, Jeff Ishee.